Hello everyone. Welcome to our first ever webinar that we are holding here live. It is called Budgeting for College Students. Before we get started, I just want to say that this is our first ever webinar that we're putting together, and we are very excited that we're doing this. As you can see, this is how I look like, by the way, those of you who are following video. This session is actually being recorded so that we can then later have it available for students, for anyone that would like to either see it again or who may have not made it to this webinar. What we are going to do is we're going to go through this presentation that we have. It's actually going to be presented by me and Trey Thompson. And what we will do is we will have the chat feature of this Blackboard collaborative platform that we're using so that you can use it to ask questions. And you're welcome to make some comments. I also will ask you questions, and the way that I'll know that to ask you to participate would be to use the chat feature. We're getting ourselves familiarized with the other aspects of this platform here, but let's go ahead and try it out. I want to try something here. On the left-hand side, it shows here there's different different icons you can click, and one of them is that you can raise your hand. Just to see if all of you are familiar with this as well, can you go ahead and raise your hand? I just want to see if you can do that. Go ahead. Very nice. Okay. That also means that you actually can hear my voice very clearly, correct? If that's the case, right next to it there's also a check mark where you can either say green check mark for yes or red X for no. So very nice. Okay, good. All right. Well, all I can do is just go ahead and get started with this. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is called budgeting for college students. And what that means is that we hopefully would like to give you some tools, some tips, and on how to best budget, especially because you're a college student. So this is what we're going to do. Excuse me. We're going to provide the knowledge, right? That's why you're here. And the knowledge can be as simple as how to budget and make a dollar last, to actually helping you how to create a good budget from income to expenses and to making sure that you always have money left over. What we hope this does is that once you are provided with the knowledge, it actually affects your attitude towards budgeting, because we have found that when we talk about budgeting, we do get the responses of, oh, I don't really like it, or I don't want to do it, or it's a waste of time, or what's the whole point, how can it help me? But hopefully with what we provide you, the information we provide today, is you can at least look at it in a positive light. And then in the end, what this will do is it would lead to a change in behavior. Now, you all have your reasons why you're attending this webinar, right? And whatever that may be, hopefully this information you receive will go ahead and change that behavior. I'm always interested in budgeting because I don't want to always be in the negative when it comes to having to budget again for the following month. Or I'm tired of overdraft fees and I want to make sure how I can make my money last. Or I'm interested in setting up an emergency fund, but how do I do that if I don't even know how much money I'm spending in all these other areas? So that's really the whole point here, is just to go ahead and provide some knowledge so that it can affect the attitude and hopefully lead to some changing behaviors, positive, or just enhance those positive behaviors you already have. Okay. So what is a college budget? Well, before we can do what a college budget is, let's just talk about what a budget is. A budget is basically a way to represent your expenses on paper, or on a piece of paper, or anywhere you want to go ahead and do that. Now, a budget basically takes into account the following: that there's money coming in from various sources, and that you're trying to do something with that money, which is spend it. And then you have to track your expenses as well. Well, a budget allows you to do that. And so a budget, a general budget, could be simple as I work, I earn income, every month I get a paycheck, and I have expenses because I have to pay my rent, I have to buy food like groceries, I have to pay my car bill, right? My gas, my electricity, and things like that. And there's a difference, though, that there's a budget, but then there's a college budget. And so that's the point of this presentation. We want to talk about what a college budget is. And really, the difference is that as a college student, you have other expenses that maybe as your average Joe who's just working, does not have those expenses. And what is that? Well, college students have to worry about those three things that I listed on here, which is tuition, books, dormitories, anything that is in addition to being what it is to be a college student. And so that is where you have to start keeping in mind that, okay, well, I have to start incorporating those type of expenses in my budget, because as a college student, as opposed to my parents who have maybe their own budget, they don't have these type of budget items in their budget. And so that's one of the differences, that the college budget basically means that you have additional expenses that someone that's not in college won't have. Now here's where we get into why you should budget. So why does it matter? Why is it important? Well, the first thing is that you can see where you currently stand. It's really kind of like the here and now. If you finally this morning woke up and said, I am tired of being in debt, I am tired of not having money last as much as I really want to, then it all starts today with you basically saying, well, I'm going to actually put everything on paper, you know, the income, my expenses, whether they're fixed or variable. We'll definitely talk about that, but this is where it begins. You can definitely see where you stand so that you can then, you know, move forward from that point. It also helps you live within your means, so then once you start figuring out, okay, well, this is what, these are the expenses that I have, or it's an eye-opener saying, oh my God, a lot of this money is going to premium coffee, well, then you can start figuring out, okay, well, then I got to start living within my means, and so or the other. It also helps you prevent impulsive spending, because a budget basically gives you a guideline as to how to begin spending the money wisely. And so the way that works is that if you start seeing where the money is going, then you can stop spending in the wrong places that you identified as important. For example, I like drinking coffee every morning, right? But if I am continuously spending for premium coffee, then that's not good for me, because if I'm trying to save money, maybe those extra 50 cents or $1 or $2 I can save it. This budget would actually tell me and say, well, you just got to stop, you know, spending it in this particular area and maybe consider an alternative. It encourages better use of the money. So, for example, if one of my goals is that I'd like to save $300 by the end of May or by the end of June, for example, then I can better use the money that I'm spending or that I'm trying to save, because I am interested in some goals. And one of the goals could be that I want to set up a savings plan or an emergency fund. So that's why it's important to budget, for these particular reasons. So as I alluded to, the main thing that really it all really starts with is a goal. I've been reading a lot of financial literacy books or money management books or personal finance books, and you know what they all say? They say that this whole road to financial capability, money management, financial success, whatever they may be, it really comes down to setting goals. If you set a goal, whatever it may be, one of them could be, I want to graduate from this college in 4 years. That's a goal. And so then once you set up a goal, then as it pertains to your finances, it will help you manage that accordingly, right? So for example, if my goal is to graduate at this university in 4 years, well, I'm going to make sure that I maybe take more than 12 units or 12 to 15 units so that I can successfully do it, right? So that's an example. Or maybe my goal is to graduate with less than $2,000 in student loan debt. Well, that's a goal. That means that probably I'll have to consider maybe applying for scholarships, Maybe I will have to work a little bit more. Maybe I'll have to save more of my money. Maybe I have to spend less in some other areas. So that's really the point. It's what are your goals? And I kind of give you some guidelines here that a goal has to be very specific. So what I'll do as I go through these areas here, that it has to be specific, be realistic, have a time frame, know what the actions you have to take. I'll give you an example. So my goal today, well, today is almost over, but let's say it was today in the morning when I woke up. My goal is that I'm going to make $20 last the whole day. All right, and that's hard for me because I'm an impulse buyer. I like to, if you put a dollar in my hand, I usually find a way to spend it. But anyways, that's my goal. So it's very specific. $20 are going to last for the next 12 hours. And it's realistic because I'm planning on using that money to buy food. And so that means I'm going to buy breakfast, I'm going to buy lunch, I'm going to buy dinner. But it's $20. That's the goal. And so as I go throughout the day, because $20 are dedicated for food today, if I, by lunchtime, have already spent $15, then I'm going to have a hard time trying to figure out how I'm going to eat dinner. But it's going to have to be on a $5 budget. If I knew ahead of time that it was going to be $20 for the whole day, I could have said maybe 5 for breakfast and 5 for lunch and then 10 for dinner, right? But that's the whole point. You have to set up a goal and determine how that's going to be. So that's just a concrete example of how is it that you can set up a goal as it pertains to setting up a budget and sticking to it. So we're going to go into more detail about what a budget looks like, but I just want to show you a screenshot of one that Trey and I have just kind of put together. And as you can see it here, this is a college monthly budget. We're going to use CSUN Squirrel as an example, and he or she, I'll just use he for right now, is beginning to set up a budget. And as you can see, we're going to talk about the two different parts, which is income and then expenses, which they can either be fixed or variable. Don't be scared. It's pretty straightforward. If you have the determination, it's not that hard. Matter of fact, towards the end of the presentation, we'll talk about other ways you can do budgets. They don't necessarily have to be on pen and paper. You can actually go virtual. Matter of fact, if you have a smartphone, you can even use one of those. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next part, which is talk about the budget itself. But before we do that, I'm going to stop there for questions. And so remember, as I mentioned, that you can use the chat feature to go ahead and ask questions. And at this time, I'd like to ask Trey if we have any questions at this time. And if so, Trey, could you please share any?
Currently, we have no questions.
Okay. No problem. Maybe. Okay. No problem. Maybe we'll have some more questions as we move along. Okay. Well, let's just go ahead and keep going. All right. I just want to make sure that people are still with me. So, can you raise your hand? I want to see if you're still with me here. And I'm on. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Good. Let's keep going. All right, so now let's get to the how-to. I don't really just want to keep talking about the importance of budgeting. I really want to start now talking about how to do it, right? It's not as difficult. Personally, I've been using a budget book to plan the last 10 years. It's almost become second nature to me. Sometimes I look forward to it, believe it or not. But anyways, okay, so planning the budget. When you're about to start planning the budget, which means sitting down and start thinking about where your money is going, one of the things you're going to have to start thinking about is your needs versus your wants. So let's define this. What is a need? A need is the basics that are necessary for survival. And yes, that could be subjective too, but that's what we're going to use as a definition. A need is the basics that are necessary for survival. Okay, so then what's the opposite? What is a want? A want is the things that we desire. Keyword here is desire, to make life comfortable and satisfying. So that's the distinction there. And as you can see by my pictures here, a need is a cup of coffee. All right, maybe I can choose not to drink coffee, but maybe it's a need for me, right? It's something that I need, and that's fine. But do I want a premium coffee, a latte, a super duper frappy, whatever that may be, right, from Starbucks? Yes. One of the things I also want to make sure you understand here, especially in this webinar, is that you are entitled to your wants. You are welcome to have as many wants as you want. But if you start setting your goals and your wants are getting in the way of trying to achieve those goals, then you have to either start reducing them or eliminate them and focus more on those needs. And so we will go ahead and talk about what are some of those as we start talking about the budget. So using the chat feature here, I like to ask the group that's here, that's joined us, what do you consider to be, for example, a cell phone? Is that a need or a want? Go ahead and feel free to share on the chat what do you think it is. Okay, so I get some needs here. I get 2 needs so far. I got a want. Okay, okay. All right. A want. We could have a home phone. Okay, Kate here, Kate 1, number 2 says that we could have a home phone. Okay. Let's go under the presumption that the cell phone is a need. I just read something in the news, I think yesterday, that 7.1 billion people in the world have a cell phone. Okay, so maybe it's a need now, right? But here's the distinction. If I have an iPhone 4, do I need the iPhone 5? If the iPhone 4 is doing exactly what it's supposed to do I really need the iPhone 5? I don't know, right? Leslie says no. Probably not. Probably not. Maybe somebody else will say, well, maybe I do because my iPhone 4 broke and I needed to get the iPhone 5, right? But in the fall, and especially as we start getting close to the help me here, the Black Fridays and the holiday season, it starts tapping into our impulses, and that's where we have to start making that distinction. You know, do we really, can we do away with that want or reduce it because we need to do that? So, for example, if this fall they're going to introduce a new cell phone, but at this fall you're trying to meet your expenses to pay for class and buy your books and things like that. If all of a sudden they come up with the iPhone 6, but your iPhone 4 is doing just as well, are you going to feel compelled to go ahead and get it? Well, that's going to be a decision you have to make. But if it's going to work for you to just stay where you are so that you can then prioritize your spending, and that's another thing about goals, is you got to prioritize those goals. If my goal is to graduate very quickly, or to buy that book, or to make sure that I don't borrow, then it's important that I spend my money wisely. Okay, well, thank you for participating in that. But yeah, it can change pretty quickly. Yes, I need a phone, but I don't need unlimited data. I could probably do with 2 gigs, right? Yes, I need a computer, but I could probably do well with a PC. I may not necessarily need the Mac, right? Those are just things I'm throwing out there just to kind of get those juices flowing as we're thinking about this. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue planning our budget. All right, so let's talk about the sources of income. So the first thing in the budget, the first thing to set up the budget is you need income, right? You need money coming in so that then you can have money coming out. All right, let's define this. Fixed income versus variable income. Fixed income is money that's received in equal payments. Fixed income is received in equal payments, right? And I'll show you some examples in a minute. Variable income is money that varies in amount and time. so it's less reliable as fixed income. So fixed income is received in equal amounts, and variable income is received, it varies in amount and time. So what we did is we took the budget and we just kind of stripped the section that we want to focus on right now. And as you can see in this example, CSUN Squirrel is already beginning to indicate here that they have paycheck, a certain amount, allowance, financial aid, scholarships, and loans. But what I did here on the left side of your screen, I indicated some typical income resources that can come your way. But I also took the liberty of, on the right side, putting other places where money comes from that we don't normally think about, right? So we have some of your traditional players here are paychecks, bonuses, tips, financial aid, scholarships. But what about money found, or you filed your tax return, you got a refund, or you're mailing in rebates? You went ahead and put a garage sale together, you got money that way, cash prices. Right? Maybe you have been saving money. Maybe you have that piggy bank where you have been storing money. That's income. That's money that's available to you. So using the chat feature, please share. Go ahead and share what do you think some of these may be in terms of whether they're fixed or variable income. So for example, here, let me ask you guys, what do you guys think allowance is? Is that a fixed income or a variable income? What do you guys think? Okay, so some people are saying allowances are fixed. Okay. What about let's do financial aid. What do you guys think financial aid is? So some people say financial aid could be variable. Yes. And that's true because financial aid is awarded to you for 9 months. After 9 months is over, you got to apply again for it. And so you not necessarily may receive the same amount of money that you received before. Allowances, yes, if it's a consistent, for example, if I'm receiving allowances from a relative, that could be the same. Paycheck, of course, is a given that usually tends to be fixed income. But here's other ones that I put on the right side, like money found. That's a variable income because it just happens that I found it. Income tax refund, that's also variable, right? Because we don't know if we will have to pay that year or not pay that year. But income comes from different sources. But the reason why this is called a college monthly budget is because when you're putting together a budget, all you can really focus on is that month or that 30 days that you're trying to work things out. You can also set budgets for a week if you wanted to, or for 2 weeks. But a month gives you a good representation of what's going on and what's happening with your money. So if that month that you're setting up the budget, you found some money, well, then it becomes part of your income, right? Next month, it probably not if you don't get that lucky. So one thing I do want to say about financial aid here is notice how CSUN Squirrel at the bottom here. Actually, I have ways to bring your attention to certain areas. You see right here under financial aid, CSUN Squirrel put $800. This is what I think he did, which is a great tactic. He went ahead and once the disbursement occurred, once the money was dispersed to him, he basically waited until tuition was paid, and then any money that was left over, he went ahead and divided it by the months that he's going to have that money for. So for fall, for example, you get your money in August, then you got to make it last September, October, November, and December. That's 4 months. So what it's telling me is that maybe he had a balance check or a reimbursement check of 8 times 4 is $3,200 that he then divided and said, you know what, I'm going to split $800 per month as my budget so that I can make it last. So that's an example of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. Again, remember that the chat feature is there for you to go ahead and ask questions. So what I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Trey, who will continue the rest of the presentation. Trey?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to join you all. Today we're going to be discussing a little bit further into the budget. We want to talk about the uses of cash. So, of course, he just went over the fixed and variable income. the income stream that you can have, but now we have to talk about where's the money going. So you have your fixed expenses and you have your variable expenses. But you can kind of hear what it means in the word. So if it says fixed, then of course we're thinking it's the same price every time that it's due. And we're going to be going into a few examples just to discuss that. And variable expenses, as you can hear, it says it varies in the amount of money that it has that is due, and it varies in the time that it's due as well. Okay, so as you can see by this example, you have the fixed expenses and you have your variable expenses. There are different. It depends on your budget too. So it's a personal budget. So if, for example, for me, cell phone, that's a fixed expense because I pay for the unlimited plan with T-Mobile, and it's a certain price. But for some people, if they decide they want to go pay by the minute, then that would be a variable expense because obviously they have, at the end of the month, they have to calculate how many minutes they did and how much they're going to be charged. As you can see, some more examples of fixed expenses is rent. You try to put some aside for utilities, depending on what utilities you have. For me, cable or internet is the same price every month. We have different things like your savings account. Those are things where you should be putting a set amount in every month. And it's very beneficial to make sure you're doing just that. And then you see your variable expenses. So you want to touch on things such as food. For me, I mean, it's a difficult task. So within food, you have to break it down also and understand, so how often am I going to be spending on food? You have entertainment, you have gas, hygiene, and you can create different sections as well. So if you say, I like going to play basketball, and you want to, or you like going to see a basketball game, then you can set some money aside for that and save for that, and incorporate it into your budget. Now, when it comes to budgeting, it's very important that we understand when our income increase or our income decrease. Say, for example, last semester I wasn't working as long as I was this semester or the previous semester. So last semester I was working 13 to 15 hours a week. So that's 5 hours less per week that I was getting paid for. So some of the things you have to consider is, what am I going to do if I don't have that source of income? But when it comes to your income increasing, you have to look into a few of the things that you might want to consider, which is opening a savings account, where that is very beneficial. So in a way, you're saying, well, I used to get paid X amount of dollars, but now I'm getting paid more than that. So this extra amount, I'm going to just put it away and hide it into a savings account. So that's a great feature to take a start on, and you can set that up online on your bank account as well. You can have a automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account, a reoccurring transfer. So you can set that up online, or you can go in and talk to a personal banker to set that up, which is very beneficial. Another thing that you might want to consider is making large credit card payments or making payments in the future. So some things you want to consider is making on your credit card, if it says minimum is $25, paying $50. If you're getting paid $50 or $100 more a month, you might want to consider trying to pay off your debt sooner than later. An example of this would be when you have your variable expenses and you have your fixed expenses and you want to pay ahead in things. For example, one thing I do like paying ahead in is my phone bill. So at the end of the month, I already paid for the next month as well. So if I'm making more money, then I can pay ahead in my cell phone bill, and at the end of that month, when I get my bill back, it says zero balance. I mean, I don't know about you all, but that makes me feel very exciting. I'm excited to see a bill that says zero balance. So take that into consideration when your income increases. We also want to take into consideration where, as I was saying about my job, when your income decreases, when you're not making as much money as you used to. You have to figure out how much money you need to decrease from your total budget. And you need to figure out what areas can you cut on your budget as well. So we're going to go in and we're going to see what we can cut in our budget. Let's just see some of the things that we would cut from our budget. Go ahead and send the chat and see what you would cut from your budget if you weren't making as much money. So if your pay was less today, what areas would you cut from first? Go ahead and respond to that, to the chat feature. Okay, I see some people saying donations and entertainment. What are some other areas in which we would cut from? Car wash, fast food. Those are all good examples. Haircut, yeah, I tend to do that often. All right. Entertainment, fast food. Entertainment. Oh, okay. Amber, entertainment, fast food. No one's saying clothing, huh? Funny thing about it is those are some of the same areas in which I cut. So if I'm low on funds, I tend to think, well, you know, I'm not making as much. I can't shop out as much. You know, that goes for as far as fast food. Entertainment. Well, I can't go to the movies. Maybe go to the movies once a month instead of twice a month now because I'm not making as much. And for me, gas, for example, traveling down back home, well, maybe it's time to start cutting those different trips. You know, maybe it's time for just one trip a month instead of 3 or 4, just to save a buck or two. Sometimes during the semester, I tend to tell myself, well, no haircuts. You know, it's winter time anyways, and you know, you need something on top of your head. So I give a little excuses as to why I'm saving or being cheap or frugal, but it comes in handy, I tell you. Also for car wash as well, those are some of the things that I cut from my budget too, because, well, you know, maybe I'll wash it or it's going to rain tomorrow anyway. So those are some of the things that I consider, and I get really upset when it rains after I get my car washed, as you all might do. So I want to stop right here and see if we had any questions related to anything I just went over. Were there any questions?
Let's see, I'm looking at the chat here right now, and I don't see any questions. Feel free to ask any questions for anything that we talked up to this point. But no, Trey, no questions.
Okay, we're going to continue. Now, this is a great slide here because it lays out 3 different opportunities where we can keep track of our finances, where we can understand our budget, we can understand our needs and our wants, and really break it down and understand our shopping habits. So as you can see right here, my spending report, this is actually provided by a bank. And the bank that provides this service is Wells Fargo. So it's a very cool feature where by using your debit card and by using, you know, all of your information is being tracked, so you can make sure you're keeping track of those areas in which you want to make sure you know, you're spending the right amount of money, or you're sticking to your plan. So that's a very cool feature. You can sign into your account if you have Wells Fargo, but I'm not sure of any other financial institution in which they have that feature just yet. But I know for sure Wells Fargo has that, and it's called My Money Map. So once you sign in to your account, be sure to click on My Money Map. Another great feature is the Cash Course Budget Wizard. And this is actually provided by CSUN. So this is actually free for all students. You can go in, you can log in and set up an account. You can set up a budget, and it's very interactive. It works with you. You can look up different terms and financial documents and different things like that. So it's a very great support for all CSUN students. It's called Cash Course. You can actually Google it. It's Cash Course, CSUN Cash Course, Cash Course. And also we have down here, which is mint.com. And I use all three of these services because you never can have enough reminders of how much money you're spending, or you can never have enough of setting up a budget or setting up different budgets, so you can see how you were able to stick with your budget from last month or from the previous month before that. So one great feature, one great platform also is mint.com. And how many of you have heard of mint.com by the show of hands? Okay, I'm hearing a few hands. So that's pretty good, because mint.com, it actually ties in all your accounts. You can sign into all your accounts, and of course it has security features, so it's making sure that your information isn't going to be stolen or anything like that. So it's just it's not keeping your account or your account information, but it's looking over those transactions and keeping those transactions so that it can create a pie chart. It can create categories in which you're spending your money. So I really use this. You can have your investment accounts in there, your retirement accounts, your checking accounts, your credit card accounts, and see exactly how much, your overall picture of how much money you're bringing in, how much money you're spending, how much money you're saving, and it's a really great help. So I really hope that you all can use one of these services, or can come into our office and sit down with one of us to go over your budget. Now this is one activity we normally have students do, and it's a great activity. One of the reasons is because you understand that you need to categorize and identify your needs versus wants. So with that being said, with this exercise, I ask that you all take out a pen and a piece of paper and think back of last week. So when you're thinking back of last week, what did you purchase last week? That's a very hard question, I know. It will not be on the SATs, or it will not be on your exit exam, but it is very important that we understand how often and when we purchased and what amount was it for. So as you're writing this, I hope that you're writing this, you're understanding that I'm having a hard time remembering what I purchased, and it's hardly coming to me. What did I eat on Saturday, or where did I go on Saturday? But you want to make sure you keep those things in your mind, because if you don't know exactly how much your balance is on your account, then you can easily overdraft. And that's how the bank is making their money, because they want you to forget and don't know exactly what you've been purchasing. So with this activity, as you can see some of the things that you went over, you can now start putting those things in categories. So once you start categorizing those things, you can probably see some of them are fast food, which is maybe in your food section. Some of those things are entertainment. Over the weekend we tend to do things that entertain us, movies or going out, Six Flags or whatever that might be. So once you understand that you have those things categorized, now next to those things, identify if it was a need or if you just wanted to do that. Was it really a need, or was it a want? So that's very important, and I think this is the psychology we should have when we go out and purchase anything. So if we go to the mall and we swipe our debit card on something, and we say, okay, is it a need or is it a want? And where would I put this where would I categorize this in my budget? How much is in that category? Remember, we said we had $125 for our budget for food. Now, if you went to the mall and stuff like that, you should be subtracting. If you knew yesterday you spent $10 on food, now you only have $115 left. So keep in mind of how much you're going to have left and how much you're going to have in the future. Okay? Now, with that being said, I'm going to transition into a few tips that you can stick with when you're budgeting. So we want to make sure you budget for every shopping trip. That goes for the malls, that goes for grocery stores, that goes for pretty much everything, even with your books, even at the bookstore. So if you budget for $500 for books, and you know each class is around maybe $100 or so, if you overspend in that category or for one class, then you're going to be out of luck for your next class. Now, I want to share an example of that is when you go grocery shopping. Say, for example, we have $125 for the month, and we understand that we need to go grocery shopping how often, so we split that up by how often we're going to go grocery shopping. If we go twice a month, then that's around $62.50 every 2 weeks. So once we're able to have that, okay, we have $60. Now we can go to the store and understand that, okay, $60 has to last me for 2 weeks. Or you can break it up bi-weekly, and that'll be $30 per week. So really keep those things into consideration where you can just ask yourself, okay, how much I have left, how much I have for the future. We want to make sure we budget within our categories. So, we have the shopping trip, we went to the store, but we also have to consider setting those budgets within the shopping trip, within your categories. So, looking out for deals and different things like that. You have to understand that you have to justify your exceptions. So if you go out and you buy an extra pound of beef, and it wasn't a part of your budget, and you happen to spend over your budget, then we have to understand, oh, I just spent over my budget, over my amount of money that I had for the month. But we really need to write it down and say, why did we spend over the amount of money? Was it on sale? So these are some of the exceptions. Was it on sale? Are you going to use it for next month? Are you having a party or an event where you have friends over or something like that? So those are some of the things you want to consider when setting your budget, is those exceptions, and not allowing yourself to have so many different exceptions. So setting really hardcore rules when it comes to overspending within a certain category of your budget. Say for example, you got the $80 for your gas, and then by the end of the month you're like, oh, maybe I should put $40 more in there because I'm going on a trip. Well, that trip is considered your exception for that budget category, and that extra $40 will be considered, of course, a loss, but something that you should have known that was going to happen because it's a trip and it should have been budgeted for. We want to make sure we keep track of our transactions, so that's going online, checking our bank account statements, or checking our last transactions. Make sure they have posted, and it's really, really critical to do that, because once you understand that you swipe your card, you're out to eat or you're at the gas station, and they give you a receipt. But sometimes they have the option for you where you can give a tip, and it will post on your account as one amount, and then a few days later it can post on your account as another amount. So be sure to look at those items, look at what you purchased, how much was it, did you get the bang for your buck, and go from there, because you really have to watch out for people like that. I was at the gas station just yesterday, and I put the pump in my car, and it kept charging. Once I was finished, it kept charging my card, and it's going like a few pennies, every second. I'm like, what's going on with your machine? So it's really important that we understand that if it was no gas coming out, but they were charging my car, they were charging my card. So keeping those receipts, and if it comes up on your bank account statement as another charge, then you would be able to refute that, which you can, because you are the consumer. Okay? So compare the amount you spent with the amount you budgeted for. So if you spent over, and in this month you set a total amount, then that carries us into the next category, which is you adjust the budget for next month. If you go over and you say, it looks like I'm going to be spending a little more per month than what I planned on, or what I thought I was going to be spending it on. So if you thought you spent $100 on food, but it really turns out that with just your needs, you're getting at $125, then it's very important that you change that number just so you can keep up to date with your purchasing and understand that it's not always going to be an exception for you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next slide. And with that being said, we are concluding the presentation, and we want to make sure that you all, if you have any questions, we answer those. We also want to make sure that you complete our survey that we have, and we're going to provide to you so you can finish online. I'm going to pass it over to Gregorio.
Right, thank you, Trey.
He's going to conclude for us.
Again, thank you
all
very much for joining us. This concludes our first ever webinar. I'd like to say thank you to our captionist for providing the caption. Hopefully we didn't speak too fast. Like I said, the session is being recorded, so we will go ahead and make it available as well later. Before we go, I do want to basically invite you, and we're going to put that in a moment in the chat area, is to go ahead and provide us some feedback. Again, this is our first ever. The topic is something we're very familiar with, which is budgeting. But I'd like you to go ahead, and we're going to give you a link to a online survey. I'd like you to go ahead and take and provide us with the most honest feedback you can possibly provide, so that we can kind of see what is it that you took from this workshop, and more importantly, what we can go ahead and work on for the future. Let's see, anything else? No, pretty much that's it. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording, stop the session now, and we'll go ahead and leave the platform open for a little bit. And if you guys have any other questions after we've concluded this recording part of it, you can use the chat feature to use that. Once again, thank you, and on behalf of the Financial Aid and Scholarships Department, Financial Literacy Program, thank you, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.